Good evening, everybody. I'd like to adjourn the Board of Education closed session and reconvene the Board of Education open session at 7:06. Mr. Golan, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Be happy to. Can we have the flag up? Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. We have our roll call. Looks like everybody's in their places. We were in closed session earlier and we took no reportable action. Up next is order of business. We could probably take these three with one motion. I don't see why not. Entertain a motion on the three approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Huffman, you please have a vote.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board President Hammond?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Yes. Thank you very much. We now have we haven't done a recognition in forever. So it seems very strange not to look out and see Duke at the podium. I hope he is here so that we can at least give him a real-time thank you. Dr. Tarosian, would you like to proceed with the recognition?
I would, and then I will pass it along to Dr. Kaiser because I know that she would like to say a few words. When I first came to Monrovia, I was surprised and impressed by the amount of tutoring and opportunity that our students had. I'd not seen one in a district of any size with that kind of breadth and resource. And I wanted to know a little bit more about it and wondered, how were you able to do it? And the answer was simple. I'd never worked in a district with Duke before. It was Duke's brainchild. Duke brought it together. His vision of taking the resources from colleges and work study programs, developing relationships, and really providing students with the support they need to succeed. And he has made his mark in Monrovia, and it's so thankful for what he's given. And I got to tell you, from the first day, I said, oh my gosh, if Duke were ever to leave, I don't know what we would ever do, because his vision, his commitment, and his knowledge base was just remarkable. And so, Duke, thank you. I wish you were here. Well, I wish we were all together. And Dr. Kaiser, I'll pass it along to you. I know that the two of them have worked together.
Good evening, board and members of the community and our cabinet. It is really amazing what Duke Freiermuth has done over the years. And I know that this PAT tutoring, proactive tutoring, began with a vision more than 18 years ago with the previous Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and Joanne Springs and Duke and the Monrovia Reads Foundation. They came together and developed a little think tank that created proactive tutoring, which started by tutoring our students who are in the AVID program years ago. And then AVID went away because of budget restraints, but the need for tutoring did not go away. And not only did it not go away, but it expanded. So over the years, Duke has supplied tutors for our Camp Read-A-Lot program, for our junior Camp Read-A-Lot program when it started, for Camp Infinity, which is our math program in the summer, our dual immersion program. He's supplied Spanish and Chinese tutors for our students that are in those 2 dual programs. The early college program, he has had tutors at the public library in town. And then anybody who has requested tutoring after school at their school or during the school day for small groups, etc., he has supplied tutors there as well. Another amazing thing about Duke is that he has gone after work study dollars in our surrounding community colleges. And so many of the tutors that have come to work in Monrovia have been fulfilling an obligation to their college or their university, and it's been of no cost to the school district. And these young people have been paid to come and tutor our kids. Under Duke's mentorship, he has had many students that have come out of teacher education programs who have gone on to pursue teaching credentials and careers in teaching. Duke's commitment is lifelong. He started working for the Monrovia Unified School District more than 40 years ago and has served relentlessly and tirelessly throughout the years. And it is with true sadness that we say goodbye to Duke and that we wish him well in his endeavors as he moves to Texas and develops a Texas accent. And we hope that we'll get a postcard or 2 and keep in touch with our dear friend Duke Fryermuth.
Duke, I understand you're here by telephone. I hope you heard all that. There was a lot of nice things said about you, and I would like to give you an opportunity to say something, and then I'll close up. Are you there, Duke?
I'm unmuted. Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much, and Dr. Kaiser, thank you for all those kind words. And I just wanted to say that 52 years ago, I came to Monrovia as a counselor at Monrovia High School, and it's been a great ride. Believe me, I've enjoyed it. I've met wonderful people. I met a wonderful community. It's just been wonderful. And several weeks ago, I happened upon one of the board meetings, and on my, I guess I must have been Zooming coming into the 21st century. Anyway, I did catch a board meeting, and I was so impressed with, again, the thoughtfulness and the care of the board for just looking after our kids. You know, the decision that night was whether or not to start school back virtually or the actual school. And it was just a great meeting. I sat there and I said, you know what? Monrovia is in great hands with the board that we have there, and with Dr. Tarosian, Dr. Kaiser, Dr. Real, and all of the board. You guys are doing just a bang up job. So even Ed Gouillard, though he was upside down, Ed, I'm going to miss you and your lovely wife and your movie reviews. Who's going to tell me what movies to see now? I don't know, but I'll keep in touch. But thank you guys. Monrovia Reads did a thing, a drive-by last week, and it was wonderful. And this is just great. I can't thank you enough. And as I said, Monrovia is in good hands, Monrovia Schools.
Well, Ed, you got me thinking about Ed being upside down. Duke, I have to tell you, we've known each other for a long, long time. And you have been a person that has given so much back to the community. Not only did you make a career here, but upon your retirement, you decided your second career was going to do even more for the people here in this community. Texas is certainly getting a hero, and we're going to feel the loss. I will miss you. You have always been an advocate for everything that I hold near and dear. And so thank you very much for everything you've done, Duke.
Well,
whenever you mosey back into town, look us up, would you?
oh, for sure. And thank you guys for everything. And I don't think I'll be saying y'all, but thank you anyway. And I do. We are moving with family in Texas, and that'll be nice. But I will miss Monrovia. I mean, it's just part of my makeup. And I love this community, and it's in good hands. Thank you guys again.
Thank you, Duke. We're sure going to miss you, Duke.
Thanks, Duke. Travel safe.
Very well.
Be well.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Duke, I have to say a couple of words to you because we've known each other so long, worked together so much. And hopefully I'm not upside down this time, but Duke, there are not enough words, there are not enough plaques, there are not enough accolades to describe what you've done for the kids of Monrovia. And you know, Dr. Therosian said it. She came here and it's like, wow, how do we have, you know, how can we do this much tutoring? And anytime a student has needed tutoring, you've had somebody there to do it. And they are enthusiastic because of your enthusiasm. Duke, we're certainly going to miss you, but we appreciate so much what you've done and wish you the best out there. And I know we're not going to be there together to talk about those movies, but we'll always think of you anytime we go to a movie, you and your lovely wife. So have a great future, Duke.
I will. Thank you guys so much. And thank you again for all the things that you do. And Ed, it's true. You know, it was just it's a labor of love. And I did give a manual and a brief history of the PAT program to Dr. Therosian that we made up, and with the contacts and stuff. And I'm hoping that Ashley, who I understand is going to be taking it. I know when all of this right now, it's just crazy. But once things settle down again and we're back to somewhat normal, if that's ever possible, I do hope that the program will continue on, and anything that I could ever do even from Texas, I will be happy to do, because this is a great program, and you and it's because of Monrovia, the community that it is, that it's been possible. Thank you again.
Be well, Duke.
Thank you.
Thanks, Duke.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye. Thank you, guys.
Well, great guy. Boy, if you had a few hundred of Dukes, you'd be okay. Next up, we have board member reports, and Maritza has a board report.
Yes, thank you, President Hammond. And I just wanted to let the community know that Monrovia High School's ASB is having the Kona ice truck in front of the high school this Thursday between 4 and 7. I've been going, and it's a lot of fun, not to mention a good refreshing treat during these hot times. In addition to the ASB Kona ice truck, the band boosters will be there selling their masks, and they're really cool masks. They're Wildcats on there, and you can get them in black or green. And they're $6 each, but if you buy more than one, then they'll only charge you $5 for those masks. So they'll be there in front of the high school as well, probably under the shady tree there. Just socially distance and wear your masks with Wildcats. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Therosian.
President Hammond, my report will be folded into the informational report.
Okay. Up next, we have public comments. Ms. Huff, do we have any public comments?
There are none.
There are none?
Yes, there are none. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Therosian, you're back up on informational reports.
Thank you, President Hammond, members of the board. As we've been fleshing out our programs and our curricula and the structure and the schedule, one of the things that has been a recurring theme is Tell us more about the social emotional learning. Tell us more about how you'll be building community and connecting. And we have had a team of people working on that, headed by Dr. Catherine Rial, our Director of Counseling, College, and Career. And so Dr. Rial is here today with us and will provide us with that overview of the social emotional learning component of our distance learning.
Good evening, Board President Hammond, board members, Dr. Tarosian and Cabinet, and members of the viewing public. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to talk about social emotional learning, or SEL as everybody refers to it. So do I have, okay, next slide, please. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight, just very briefly. SEL, social emotional learning, what is it and why are we doing it? What topics will be covered? What will students learn? What does it look like? And when will students learn it? Next slide, please. So SEL, or social emotional learning, what is it and why are we doing it? Next slide. So the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning is an institute that drives research, guides practice, informs policy, and develops professional networks around research-based social emotional learning. And this is how they define SEL. So how children and adults learn to understand, number one, understand and manage emotions. Number two, set goals. 3, show empathy for others. 4, establish relationships. And 5, make responsible decisions. So we are all successful contributing adults. I think we'd all agree, right? And we all possess these skills. And so I think the operative word here in this definition is learn, because these are skills that we have all, any contributing adult has learned over their lifetime, and they can be taught and they can be learned. So I think never has there been a more critical time for Monrovia as a district to be intentional and purposeful about our students' social and emotional well-being, and to make sure that our students feel safe, that they know how to manage the overwhelming emotions brought on by this global pandemic, and that they can interact in a positive way with their peers, with their teachers, with their principals, and so forth. So let's take, one last thing. I wanted to mention that SB 98 set minimum standards for distance learning. And among those standards is the requirement to address social emotional well-being. And that's what we're going to be doing. And that's what I'll be talking about. So next slide, please. So let's take a look at the 5 core competencies of social emotional learning. They are social awareness, relationship skills, self-management, self-awareness, and responsible decision-making. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you can see what kind of topics fall under each of those core competencies. For example, self-awareness on the top left corner. That's helping students identify their emotions and recognize their strengths, their self-confidence, and their self-efficacy. And just underneath that is self-management. So in order to be able to manage your emotions, first you have to be aware of them and to be able to name them. So once you're aware of your emotions, then you can work on such skills as impulse control and stress management and self-discipline and self-motivation. On the top in the middle there, we have social awareness. And topics covered under social awareness are things like being able to take the perspective of somebody else. And once you can take the perspective, you can begin to empathize with them, appreciate their differences and diversity, and then develop respect for others. And once those skills are in place, then you can build relationships, you can work in teams, you can engage socially, and communicate effectively. And then finally, we have responsible decision-making, analyzing situations and solving problems. So imagine the impact of teaching these skills in an intentional and meaningful way for our students. Imagine the impact in the classroom and in the students' lives and in the teachers' lives and principals' lives if students had all of these skills in place before they left us. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this slide shows some of the curricula that we're pulling from at the elementary, middle, and high school level. So you'll see some common curricula across all grades. And if you see an asterisk by the name of the curriculum, it means that it is either a free resource or a resource that is paid for through a grant. So elementary, we're using Second Step, Olveus Anti-Bullying Prevention Program, Common Sense Education that talks a lot about internet safety and emotions and drama on the internet and in social media, and Nearpod SEL in Action. And at the middle school and high school level, you'll see that Jostens Renaissance Harbor series is used, along again with Olveus Anti-Bullying Prevention Program and some of those other common curricula like Common Sense Education and Nearpod SEL in Action, which bridges all grade levels. And at the high school, part of their BAR program, the Building Assets, Reducing Risks, also has its own curriculum. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide shows what some of the lessons look like. And on the top left corner, you see the elementary. This is a series on teaching tolerance. So Nearpod actually partnered with the Southern Poverty Law Center to address lessons on diversity and anti-bias. And I show you here the example of the primary grades lesson, but these lessons span all grade levels all the way through high school. On the top right corner, you see the Harbor Renaissance series, and that's a middle school lesson on time management. And you see there's this cool skater dude that's talking about managing your time and being organized. And that's something that we're teaching at the secondary level in the first month, because we want to make sure students have these skills in place to be successful and do that responsible decision making that I talked about earlier. And then finally, at the bottom, you see an example of one of the common sense education lessons for the high school. And that covers something that is so prevalent in our students' lives, and that is online social media hate speech. And that's something that really, unfortunately, our kids, this generation of students has a really difficult time unplugging from. And so these lessons address the drama that can be created with inappropriate use of social media. So these are just a few examples of some of the SEL curriculum lessons that our students will be receiving in the classroom. Next slide, please. So what will this schedule look like? And I'd like to just say that there have been many different iterations of what the distance learning schedule will look like in every district across the state. And I'm really proud of the schedules that we've put together for distance learning, because they're purposeful and meaningful in addressing social emotional learning on a regular basis. So let's take a look at the elementary schedule to begin with. So the elementary schedule involves social emotional learning during block 1 on a weekly basis. And these happen individually with the classroom teacher. So it's an opportunity for the students to connect with their teachers, learn these skills, and connect with their peers. And then any follow-up activities or follow-up discussions with students or groups happen with the elementary counselor and her interns. Okay, next slide. We'll show you the secondary schedule, and there we go. And the secondary schedule, again, offers the weekly lessons. They call it morning seminar, and Monday morning seminar. And again, that happens in each teacher's classroom with the individual class. And so the students have the opportunity to build a class culture, a sense of belonging, and to learn those skills that I talked about earlier. And again, any follow-up to any emotions or thoughts or questions that come out of these lessons will be followed up on by the counselors or through DeVille in the Wellness Center. Okay, now, last slide. Any questions?
Any questions of Dr. Rial? Celine.
Thank you, Doctor. This has been very helpful because I have heard from parents, why are we doing this? What is it for? And I think your presentation was really helpful in answering why we're doing this and what it's for. And I think it's positive. So I appreciate you giving us some more insight into this. I have 3 questions.
Okay.
You mentioned the curricula for the social emotional learning, Alveus, Jostens Renaissance, etc.
Right.
Do we have all of this curricula yet?
So we have access to everything that I showed you on the slide. We have the second step for third, fourth, and fifth grade that was purchased through the elementary counseling grant a few years ago. And then we have access to free on-demand lessons that second step has made available. And we are in the process of purchasing the primary grades curriculum. The high school has BAR. The rest of them are open resource, so we can access all of that. And then I'm also looking at the Character Strong gym, which provides over 150 different exercises that teachers can do with their classes in distance learning as well as in person.
And so teachers know how to access that.
Yes, and we're providing some training, and we will continue to provide additional training, not just for the teachers to teach them, but also for the teachers' own self-care and the trauma brought on by this pandemic that affects our staff.
Thank you. You mentioned SB 98, I think you said. Did they give us any money for implementing this? Because I know you said there were some things that were free and reduced and open, but for anything that we did purchase, did they provide any money for this?
Yes, I think Dr. Kaiser would be the best person to talk about the loss mitigation funding.
Okay, so this can come from that.
Yes.
Okay. And my last question, thank you for that.
Sure.
Maybe you don't have an answer for this right now because I know it's new and it's happening in a new platform. Mm-hmm. So if you could get back to this later, sure, that would be fine with me. How are we gauging if students are, I guess I want to say, learning from this, mm-hmm, that they're absorbing this, that they're learning from what they're being taught in this platform?
Right. Well, I think there's data that we can point to, metrics as far as behavior and attendance to look at engagement, student engagement, but all good SEL lessons involve a pre and post test because you want immediate feedback on, first of all, what do students know about this particular topic before you start? And then when you're done with your lesson, what can you point to as far as what they've learned or what they still need to learn and you need to go back and reteach? So there will be several data points to look at the effectiveness of the various curricula that we'll be using.
Okay, so just like any other learning, there's testing.
Yes.
So
assessment. Yes.
Sure, better word. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. Is there another question?
Any other questions?
Yes, I have. I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment since my daughter is at Monrovia High School, so she's part of the secondary schedule. And we had a conversation about it today because they had theirs on Monday. And it's actually something that she's looking forward to now. It's kind of sets the tone for the week. It's coming across very positive, good interaction. Her particular seminar, she didn't know any of the other kids in her seminar. So she's creating relationships now with kids that she didn't know. And I don't know if that was purposeful or purposely done or not, where they were trying to put kids in groupings where they might, not have been together before. It just worked out that way for my daughter. But anyways, I kudos to all of you for putting this together. I think that kids are really going to be looking forward to this particular session. So thank you very much for the report out on this.
That's wonderful. That makes me so happy. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Rial, I think that what you just presented to us was terrific. It only took a few minutes, and I just wonder if it might be something that we could use as I don't know, as a roadmap for future information for our parents. It seems to me like something, if you put on that presentation, what did it take? 3 minutes, 4 minutes? And put it on Parent Square and put it on the Monrovia Unified website as what's going on in Monrovia Unified. And we're doing social emotional teaching this year, and here's what that's about. And it's short enough that people could watch it quickly and get a real good idea of how great some of the things that are happening in Monrovia Unified are. So maybe Dr. Throsian, Dr. Rial, we could look at how we get this kind of thing onto our websites and on the Parent Square to get the information out. Anyway, great job, Dr. Rial.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Rial, thank you so much for this very important information. We find ourselves in a different environment than we've ever found ourselves in, because now school counts in an online environment. And we do know that there's a lot of children that do not have adult supervision that are online. And being sure that the needs of all these students are being met somewhere along the line is critical. And so I appreciate the time and the effort of putting this together, bringing the information to us, making the information available to parents. It's critical that we get this information to parents as well. And I agree with Ed, any way we can get this information out to people, I even say email it to them. We have everybody's email addresses now, thanks to Parent Square. And I think this is critical information for people to know that there's somebody here willing and able to help. So it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Next, we have.
We're going to keep going with the.
That was not it, but yes, there's more.
But wait, there's more in our distance learning update. And also let me add to the accolades with Dr. Rial's thoughtful approach to providing our students and our staff with much needed resources in a time of crisis, and we are still that. As always, we begin with our guiding principles of providing a continuity of instruction and services, keeping the health and safety of students and staff at the forefront, and providing access and equity for all students, maintaining regular communication and offering flexibility and grace. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. Our enrollment. On the first day of school is a little different than the second Wednesday in October, or the first Wednesday in October. But last year, on the fifth day of school, we had 5,140 students. This year, we are down by just under 100. And our projection is down by 96. So we hope to continue to increase our enrollment as we have since the first day of school, and hope that it meets at least our projection. Next slide, please.
Can I ask on the projection, with the way the role is being taken now, are we still using front office people to call the people that we think should be there?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And we hope to have an analysis of all of that information for you by our next board meeting.
Thank you.
Can you explain for those listening what CBEDS is?
Of course.
When that is?
The first, and Ms. Wu, is it the first Wednesday?
Yes, first Wednesday of October, and the CBEDS is the original traditional term. Now we call the CAPEX.
Some of us old timers have never gotten away from CBEDS. It is the first Wednesday in October. The date hasn't changed, the terminology has, and it is to identify a point in time, because our enrollment fluctuates throughout the year. And in California, they've selected one day, and that's the day that we're going to take enrollment and identify it as the enrollment for the year. So it's a point in time, and it is indicative of the year. And last year, that at that point in time, it was 5,190. Next slide, please. This presentation is crafted into a few different segments. As you know, July 30th, just a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, we discussed the summer feeding program and how it was about to expire. It has since expired because of there was no waiver that continued allowing us to continue to feed our community as we had in the summer and since spring. Next slide, please. So our meal services are now available at all of our schools, but they are for paid students would need to pay, but free and reduced meals if you qualified for that and have submitted your application, the meal would be either free, would be free. We are not charging for our reduced students. They are still grab and go, 7:30 to 11:30 to make sure that we are accommodating the instructional schedule. But we are operating at about 15% capacity. We are not distributing the food that we did. People are not leaving their homes to purchase food from our sites.
I just want to make sure people understand that. That's not, we're down 15%, we're down 85%.
Yes.
Correct?
That's exactly correct. Actually, Ms. Wu, do you want to walk us through this next disturbing slide?
Sure. I want to our community realize that although we are down 85% and we are only serve at a 15% capacity, and the county, LA County Office of Education, we have over 80 school districts. The average serving capacity is between 1% to 12%. And this is not only LA County, the statewide. We were in the CDE town hall meeting this Tuesday, and statewide, every school district suffer. We all of us try to figure out how to continue to promote our school meal and attract more family to take our meals. So this slide provides the impact. Right now, from comparison with the financial impact from last year at the same time versus this year. So August 2019, based on number of the meal we served, the state the revenue generated for the number of meals served is equivalent to over $80,000. Depend on year to date, only 6 days for this school year, we estimate that our revenue we can claim from states only over $19,000. So our financial impact is we based on the same equivalent last year, this year, the claim from the state for meal service, the revenue loss is over $61,000. So if we continue the current serving capacity, and if the distance learning model continue up to December of this school year, so compare with last school year as a model, then last year, the first semester, the revenue generated from number of meals served is over $1.2 million. If the current situation continues, we are talking about loss of almost $1 million. And I want to let the board community, we are not around. The big school district like LAUSD, I project that they may most likely they're going to lose $1 million per month, even higher. So it is a challenge. And today I know that there's an organization write a letter to USDA to request extend for the continued waiver for the eligibility. So a lot of people has signed, but as of right now, the USDA has not waived the eligibility. That is exactly the challenge we have right now.
Thank you, Ms. Wu. So that devastating kind of loss is
Kathy, one second, okay? Brian has a question.
So, you know, obviously the biggest loss is that we have students who in the past had relied on the district for their only nutritious meals of the day, and they're not getting them. And the trickle-down effect for kids not being healthy or eating healthy is long-ranging, not just how are they going to do in school today, but it affects everything else. So outside of the money, let's not lose track of what happens when our kids aren't eating well. But going back to the money for a second, I just want to make sure and clarify what we're saying here when we're saying we're taking a $967,000 loss. I mean, is that an actual dollar amount, actual revenue that we are not collecting but still expending? Or is this really kind of a gross number, meaning that we're not taking into consideration, we're not buying a lot of food. We know that the cafeteria area, I think, is exempt from layoffs. So we know we have a lot of fixed costs attached to this. Can you put it into a little bit better perspective as to what the net financial impact on us would be?
Sure, I will do that. This number only is a revenue side. The state, both the state and federal provided revenue based on the number of the meal the district served. So this is only talking about the loss of a revenue. We have not, we will do the estimate for our expenditure. Our food costs will be reduced, and our personal, the salary wise, we may not able to reduce much because we have still have employee work at a different kitchen, although our serving capacity reduced. However, we are very conscientious with the number of food we orders, as well as the sub required and extra hours. So we are limited sub, we are limited number of extra hours, and the cafeteria manager, they work very hard to make sure they cover each other. We're not order extra food when necessary. Each kitchen will share with the extra food. So when time goes by, I will able to provide the board the projection, the P&L, the revenue. I need probably around a month so that with the number more stable.
That's fine, because we know that food service in general, we try to stay even, but that's not always the case. So I'm just curious, like I said, what the actual financial impact is going to be on the district, whether we're actually losing more money, and I'm going to guess that we are losing a lot more money because of our high fixed costs. But coming back in a month would be perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Wu, that brings up the question to my mind, is if we're preparing for that many more students than we had, we had many more last year, and I'm sure that at least for the first several weeks, we're preparing more food than we have customers. What happens to the leftover meals? How much of that is perishable? How much of it's reusable? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I have general idea. Most of the food is the summer product. It's frozen food. So when we serve the meal, we put them in the meal. We have a high regular meal because there's a limited time to exposure, and so at this moment, I'm not getting any information that we waste a lot of food. and the cafeteria manager, they are very anxious to keep minimize our loss. And right now, we always we're able to reuse the next day. And then right now, based on the first couple of days, the low meal service pattern, and they just the cafeteria manager adjusts their meal prepare accordingly. But I can definitely go back to cafeteria manager and verify the information I provide to the board and put it in this week's update if there are any discrepancies.
Yeah, if in fact we have leftover meals and it is in any way possible, I would like to see us get it to the homeless if there's any way to do that. But hopefully we're not preparing a lot of food that isn't going to be consumed that day.
Yeah, I will verify and then we'll report to the board at this week's update.
Thanks.
Ms. Wu, I'd like you to explain what the actual challenge is, why we have less students picking up meals. Is it because of the time and that they're, not able to make it over to the school because they're preparing for their day of distance learning? What is the major challenge here and why we feel meals are not being picked up? I direct my cafeteria manager personally make a phone call to the family and identify what is the challenge. It is because of the schedule issue or it is because of transportation issue. So once I get the feedback, I will report to the board. And until we identify what is the cause of the issue, then we can address it. But my general thinking is because when we compare with the school is closure starting March 16, and then USDA gave us a waiver. Basically, there's no eligibility requirement from March 16 at the end of June 3rd, and then continue to summer. Basically, the USDA allowed the district use the summer feeding model, which means that the flexible with the time, no eligibility required. So we were able to support the community. I think because of eligibility requirement and because of the online distance learning, so the parents are very busy. So we try to ask the true cause, and once we identify true reason, we will definitely try to solve this. And then we continue to promote our program. And we found that when parents didn't even know that we continue to provide food. So what we did is we post our information on the website, we post information on our parent square, and then we also post information at the district on Facebook and the Twitter. So we're going to continue to promote our program. And even today, I was at the school site, I saw the parents walk by. I said, "Did you pick up a meal?" He said, "Oh, no, I didn't." I said, "Go ahead and pick up a meal because the food table is just here, just beside you." So he said, "Sure." So I think I don't want to assume, but my impression is the parents try to busy get the kids on schedule for the distance learning. So it is our responsibility to continue provide information and support the family, especially the needed family. Connie, have we considered possibly, because Monday is a lighter day on the schedules, is it possible to give the meals for the entire week on Monday? So is that at all possible?
There is a possibility, definitely there is a possibility. The challenge we have here, we need to continue to verify. During the summer, when we talk about the pandemic severe, we are thinking about provide the one-day meal, and we were told that we are required to provide a stable, shelf-stable meal. So I need to double confirm that if we do provide a one-day meal, is a shelf-stable meal requirement still valid? So that is also the other challenge is personnel. Even if we provide a one meal per week, I still have a staff at the kitchen. And also this definitely is something we can consider. And I had from the city webinar, some other district who has a very lower free reduced meal percentage, such as like Pi Alto, they only have a 4 to 5%. they are talking about try to not order processing food. They try to prepare the food from scratch because they have a central kitchen. So I think if the parents in our community like those kind of idea, and we probably think about that, because the bottom line is we have staff in the kitchen. I'm trying to figure out to balance their work schedule at the meantime support our community. But definitely we can think about that.
Right, but if transportation is the issue and the timing, we need to try to make it as convenient for our families as possible. And if that means they only need to go to the school once a week to pick up the meals, I mean, that's something that we should be looking at as a possibility. Either way, the food service department staff will be paid. I mean, that's just one of the requirements. So
yeah,
anyways, thank you.
Yeah, and Mr. Taranti, we are also planning. I had a conversation with my cafeteria manager. They are amazing. They are very upset and look at the number. They just try to go above beyond their duty call. So
and they have absolutely.
Yes. So for example, if we have certain apartment complex, we have 2 or 3 complex across high school. And our cafeteria manager, if there is a need from that complex, they are willing to cross the street provide. The same token is if there is need for us to deliver the food, we will give it a try because our bus driver is available to support us, and our cafeteria manager personally willing to do that. So we need the data. That's the reason why we need to work on the data. But if the community member parents you are watching our board meeting tonight, please contact the district office food service department. Please let know what can we help you. We're here to support you. Let us know your challenge and let us know if you need deliver food or if you need extra meal service time, and we need your input to make sure that we can support you.
Okay, thank you.
Celine, you had a question?
Actually, Maritza asked it, and my next question, Connie did touch on it. So thank you both very much. But I was thinking if the issue is that parents can't get to the food, I'm thinking sort of ice cream truck, bus driver, school bus sort of thing. And I'm wondering if that is something that we can do. Can we do that? Can we utilize our buses and get meals to the people that can't get to us?
That's definitely the option, and in order to adjust, we need to know the information. We also think about depend on the need. We probably use the regular bus stop as also the meal delivery part. But the bottom line is we need the parents support. Let us know what you need so that we can help you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the follow-up on this so that we can make sure that we get the nutrition to the students as Brian mentioned earlier. That's so important. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Connie.
Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. We had some new information come our way last week. On Friday morning, I was on a call with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and we had been hoping and expecting it, but last week we finally got permission to actually use our expanded learning monies to help support additional small group supervision of learning, the learning pods that we had been exploring. And so we have a way through which to support this, and a clear yes, it's allowed, because we did not have that prior to last Friday was the first time I ever heard that. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. I'm not going to go through all of the requirements. Please know that simply saying that it's okay isn't enough. And there are some clear requirements that we have to follow, some protocols and procedures, but these are also things that each of our subcommittees have been working on, whether it's the COVID mitigation plan, the entry screening, the signs, the hand washing stations, additional hand washing stations. All of those things are things that we have been looking through simply because we will need it when we finally come back to school, if it's in a hybrid manner. So this is work that we are doing that will serve multiple needs. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. We'll need to do some additional work in identifying an eligibility list, identifying a prioritization, because we'll need to know what the need is, as well as what our staffing would be, and where. And so we're beginning to look at each of those. The next slide, please, Ms. Also, very recently, some information about youth sports. And before anybody gets excited, it's we are still not starting sports and the traditional sports until early 2021. But there are some additional guidelines that we've been provided, and that I need to look through a little more carefully, as will our folks in the subcommittee, as well as on the high school, to identify if there's some opportunities to do some small group, again, conditioning, because there was a clear no at some point as well by LA County. So in our call with Dr. Ferrer tomorrow, I hope that that's addressed as well. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. Again, continuing with the guidance about youth sports and the guidelines, when we did open up briefly to do some conditioning before we were closed down again, we put much of this in place, the not sharing of equipment, the regular sanitization, the screening procedures, and so forth. Next slide, please. On August 20, yesterday, we received new guidance. This is from the California Department of Public Health, and each point I am identifying not just the date, but the entity from which we have received guidance, because we can't necessarily follow all of the guidance. What we have been told is we follow the guidance of the most local entity, and that is the LA County Department of Public Health, because their guidance is specific to our local conditions. And so the California Department of Public Health guidance about small cohorts of students who need some specialized supports and services at schools. And this is in ratios of 14:1 with no more than 2 adults. So some clarification about the difference between that and the 10:1 ratio from the last one, as well as the locations, are all things that we will need. And I was only able to look at some of the guidance. I haven't read it all as deeply as I would have liked in the last day. Next slide, please. They do provide us with some prioritization as they give it, and there's also a clear understanding of capacity not exceeding 25% of the school's enrollment size. Now, in the past, any of these learning cohorts have been focused on also elementary schools, similar to the waivers. And I don't know if there are any limitations or guidance about that as well. Again, more reading to do and more questions to ask. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. Speaking of the waiver, our numbers in LA County are decreasing, which is a great thing. And it is truly what we want, not just because, we want to be in a healthy environment. We want our kids to. Waivers, if you recall, are under the jurisdiction of the local Department of Public Health. The waiver requirements as listed from the California Department of Public Health identifies being fewer than 200 cases per 100,000. And I believe LA County is just about gotten to that point. I have also read that LA County Department of Public Health is not in any way looking at waivers just yet. That will be part of the information that we'll receive in our weekly call with the LA Department of Public Health to get some additional information about that. However, once any county is eligible to apply for the waiver, there are many, many guidelines and processes that need to be reviewed. And I wanted to make sure to bring that to your attention. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. More requirements, and includes the Cal OSHA requirements for safety and cleaning and disinfecting. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. The requirements include consulting with our various constituent groups, posting the information about cleaning and disinfecting schedules, screening protocols, communication protocols, the contact tracing and testing protocols. There are a lot of requirements, and just as a reminder, the waiver would only be applicable to elementary schools. And the application would be submitted to the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, who would review it once we get to that point. We have been working on each of these things, as I said, with our the work that we've been doing to try and be prepared for a resumption of the idea of a hybrid blend learning model. And so all of that work would be transferable. Next slide, please, Ms. Huff. Our next steps will be to continue exploring in these learning pods, to begin exploring the targeted specialized support. Again, that guidance was provided yesterday, and it's not clear exactly what the intent is, and I want to make sure that it is aligned with some of the other guidance we've received, the investigating the youth sports guidelines, and continuing to provide updates. The work on the hybrid model will continue simply because it is inevitable, I hope, that we will be able to come back and all of these protocols and procedures would be applied. I believe that may be my last slide. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Terosian. Any questions or comments of Dr. Terosian? Okay, just one thing. Go ahead, Celine.
I just, thank you, Doctor. There was a lot of information on these 10 slides. And I want to, I noticed that you had some things highlighted in some of the beginning slides about the expanded learning programs. And one of the things that I thought was important to reiterate is the word now. And that when we hear people say, why haven't we done this? Why haven't we already done this? Why didn't we do this 3 months ago?
When the word now is highlighted, it is because we are now provided with this opportunity. We now have been given approval to actually continue the work that we have been doing in exploring learning pods for the last few weeks has been before we were even given approval and permission to offer such a thing.
So we haven't been given permission until now to even explore this. And even before we have been given this go ahead, you have been researching this extensively, how we would go about it.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you have been doing for the past several weeks, researching how this could happen. I appreciate that. And I know it's been extensive, the work that you have been doing in researching this. I wanted to know, I don't expect you to have this number tonight, but on one of the slides, it mentioned the COVID stats, the numbers, number of cases per population. If you could get what our numbers are, I would appreciate that. And I might have misunderstood Dr. Ferrer, but I thought that for the waivers stats were specifically for our district, not just the county. Am I correct, or did I misunderstand that?
My understanding was that the county statistics were important and local statistics would play a role. And so any application to the
waiver,
Los Angeles Department of Public Health would take into consideration Monrovia.
Okay, so that's why I was looking for specifically our numbers, not just the county numbers.
Yes.
So those were my questions and comments. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Ferocian, I'd like to thank you for this in-depth informational that you bring to the board all the time. This is the reason why we're having special meetings each week. As you can see, the amount of information that's coming in, not just on how to educate your students, but how we run the school district. It comes in constantly. And items that we had planned for a month ago that would be up for to be working on right now are often scrapped and replaced with new plans as it becomes available. So we will continue doing our special meetings. You'll hear at the end of this meeting that we'll be having a special meeting a week from tomorrow so that we can keep the community abreast of everything that's going on in real time as soon as we get it. As Celine mentioned, there are a lot of questions of why didn't you do this at a certain time and why didn't you do that? The fact of the matter is I think the definition of COVID is plan, scrap, and then replan. And that has been indicative of everything that we've been doing since about March the 13th. And it is frustrating, and we know it's frustrating for parents as well, because you would like to have a little normalcy in your life, little things that you could count on, and we would certainly like to provide it. And we will keep going at it until we get back into whatever a normal procedure looks like. But thank you for this very in-depth model here, Kathy. Appreciate it very much.
Very welcome.
Up next, we have a summer school update. Dr. Kaiser. Sue? Oh, there she is.
Board President Hammond, Board, Dr. Ferocian, fellow cabinet members, and the community, I am very pleased to present to you tonight a complete summer school update. We have several programs. I'm going to go through several slides that are indicative for each of the programs, and I'll go through them a little bit rapidly so that we can do this in a timely fashion. But I felt that it was important that we do a pretty thorough job, because a lot of resource and a lot of time and a lot of emphasis go into these programs to meet specific needs of students in our community. So with that, we're going, next slide, please, Ms. Huff. The summer camp 2020. This summer, we did not know exactly how summer school was going to go amidst the COVID-19 situation. And knowing that it would all have to be online, how would we train the teachers? How would we get the information out to the students? How would we get materials in their hands? And then do the teaching day to day? Those were all questions that needed to be rapidly actualized. And we have a fantastic staff here in Monrovia. As a team, people got together and developed take-home packets. Our teachers developed classrooms through Google and Zoom for daily online instruction. And the student showed up. And that was the most gratifying thing, that children that were identified actually came. There were small groups that were offered for that online differentiated teaching students right where they are. And then there were office hours offered online. And I spoke to a few of the teachers over the summer that were having different issues with different aspects of summer school. And in talking to them, they would say, I was answering calls to parents until 3:00 in the afternoon. They were only paid until 12. Or they were returning calls in the evening because the outreach is so important. And these teachers had such dedication, and we're so proud of the work that they did. We also exercised some of our online tutoring with Duke's tutors and the transition to Ashley in our tutoring program. So we had some tutors that were working in the Zoom environment also. And then you're going to see that we had some virtual activities that were engaging and motivating for students. Next slide, please. So here's a photo of the materials pickup, and you'll notice our robust staff that showed up that day to pass out materials for Camp Read-A-Lot, Junior Camp Read-A-Lot, and Camp Infinity. The parents drove up, they told the name of their student and the camp that they were going to attend, and they received all the materials they needed for 4 weeks of instruction. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of one of our teachers teaching her students, and you could see the engagement here. Everyone is showing their answer on a whiteboard, and there was interaction. It wasn't just a teacher talking to the students for 4 hours, but there was actual work that was happening, and there were the exchanges of ideas, which is so motivating in the learning environment. And this is how people learn, is when we come together and we share what we know. So here's a picture of what that looked like. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of our students in their homes learning, and you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, one of our teachers, Mrs. Elliott, teaching from her classroom at Wild Rose, her summer school class. And I have to say, it's from the enthusiasm of these teachers that the students showed up and that they learned and that they grew. Next slide, please. Here's another picture of our students learning what the Zoom looks like, the teacher view. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of what one of the lessons may have looked like. So as the teacher is teaching, they're able to demonstrate and move their cursor, the mouse around, to point out different images in the class and then to call on the students. So you'll see that this is the teaching page that the student sees. You see on the left side what the teacher sees in terms of where their lesson is going. And on the right side of the screen, you notice that there's a student, so that the teacher does see a row of their students so that they can scroll up and down, make sure that the attention is there, and then be able to interact and call on students for different activities during the work. Next slide, please. These were some glows and grows for summer school. these are some things that the students said. I am proud because I am getting better at reading and writing. I am proud because I'm getting better at writing. So you can see that the students had some buy-in to what they were doing. And look at the one that says, I am proud of my journey of my lost, my lost of Wahi. And what this was their story, very personal to these students. I can improve my taking more. I am proud that I can read in my group. And these are students that have been struggling readers and writers that are able to express themselves. And they also know how to use the technology. This is a whiteboard piece of the technology that students had to learn how to use. Next slide, please. On Fridays, the teachers took their students on virtual field trips. They had fun Friday activities. We don't just learn skills, but we learn to apply our skills through the context of things that we do. And that's the way it is in real life. When you're learning something, you don't learn everything in isolation. You have to bring it back to a place of application. When we have our live summer schools, once a week, the students go on real field trips that are very exciting. And we felt that that was something that was going to be so missed. And the teachers said, you know what, we could do virtual field trips. They were able to take children to places like the Grand Canyon, Colorado River, canoeing that they would have never been able to see. And they probably would not have discovered this on their own. Next slide, please. So what was our attendance like in summer school? Our summer school attendance went anywhere from 81% up to 90%. You could see here. We had daily attendance that was just terrific, considering that we were online. It was a different kind of environment. We were worried that we would even have students interested in doing this after we had such an emergency in our shutdown. Next slide, please. And here it is by grade level. Next slide, please. Another lens of our attendance, and this is all four of the 4 programs. You could see the attendance across the board. Next slide, please. So then we had junior camp read a lot. These are incoming first graders through third graders. It's a reading intervention program, and it supports students that are not reading at grade level. This is that early intervention. When we see a child in kindergarten that hasn't mastered the kindergarten skills, we're able to enroll them in junior camp read a lot to give them a boost in the summer of this 4-week program. And we use a tool called the reading inventory as a pre and post test. We test them the first day of summer school and the last day of summer school. So day 1 and day 20. It was 4 weeks long. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the daily instructional components, the children received interactive read-alouds where they were interacting with the text with the teacher, guided reading, which is small group reading where the student has a little book reading with the teacher in a small group at their level, and then independent reading. In those packets that you saw going home, it wasn't just worksheets, there were books in there. And we want to say that a big thank you to Monrovia Reads, who supplied 3 books for every one of our students that were in Camp Read a Lot, 3 chapter books for our upper grade students and 3 picture books for our primary students. They received whole group and small group meetings, and the focus was on speaking, listening, reading, and writing. It wasn't just reading and writing, but also learning how to speak and how to listen. When you speak, it's the precursor to writing, and listening comprehension is the precursor to reading comprehension. In the junior camp read a lot, there was a lot of emphasis on letter formation, grammar, and phonics, and then the response to literature. Did you enjoy the story? Did you understand the story? When the character was walking down the street, where did you think that character was going? those types of questions, getting children through the text. Next slide, please. So what was our growth in junior camp Read a Lot? We tested the students first and last day of summer school, and these kids that we thought we would be lucky to have maintained, because usually students that aren't doing as well in school experience a pretty big summer slide. They could lose 4 to 8 weeks of growth over the course of a summer. These students grew 1.5 to 2 years in just 1 month. This is more than they typically grow in the previous summers. In the previous summers, our reading programs, the students have grown about 6 months, which we've celebrated, and it has been just terrific. With this online program, they actually grew more. And we don't have a complete understanding as to why that is yet. They were very engaged, and the growth is there. So with these data and the data that you'll see in the other programs momentarily, we are convinced that teachers do have the efficacy to be able to teach and students learn in an online environment. Next slide, please. So here is the data. You can see that the students that we had students that were in the red. We had 18%, 6% of those students moved up. And then the students that were in the yellow, they moved up. The students that were in the green moved up. And look at how many of the students became advanced during the summer program. These are our youngest children that are, maybe have gaps in phonics, maybe have gaps in their reading. And mind you, we had the last trimester of the year where it was online, and such a shock to everybody's system, where there were some inconsistencies for our children. And I think that some of the catch up that we saw here was due to the fact that they came in on shaky ground in the beginning of the summer school. And this was a very prescriptive program that was very predictable. They knew what was going to happen every day. It was delivered without it being a flurry of emergency. Teachers had time to prepare for it, and it was just received so well. So you can see the growth here. Next slide, please. So Camp Read a Lot, these are our 4th and 5th grade students, and it's the same as our junior. These are just our older students. Next slide, please. So the daily components were the same. The thing that differs here is that students were given a lot of work in Greek and Latin root words. Much of the English language is comprised of words that are developed from the Greek and Latin root. And if you understand those roots and the way the suffixes and prefixes work, you can understand a lot about vocabulary. The students were given their chapter books, and the students were guided through these chapter books during the summer. So students who are reluctant readers, each one of them read 2 complete chapter books in 4 weeks. That means a whole chapter book in 2 weeks. That's a lot of reading for somebody who doesn't struggle, and these are kids that are struggling readers. Next slide, please. Their average growth was over a year in just 1 month. And again, this is more than what we typically get during our regular summer program where it's face-to-face. Next slide. This is how the data looked. We had 4% of our kids become advanced, where we had 0 to begin with. And look at how many of them got out of the red. Almost 20%. So proud of them. Next slide, please. We want to thank all of our partners. We had tutors that came from the high school kids that are in the MASA program came down to listen to these kids read. They were online with them, listening to them read, helping them to understand those chapter books, and keeping them motivated throughout the time that they were in the program. Next slide, please. So Camp Infinity, these are our 4th through 8th graders who are below in math, but they're at grade level in English language arts. So that means that these students have sort of lost their mojo for math. And we know that if we don't catch them up before they go to high school, their chances of completing integrated math that has algebra and geometry in it, their chances of them being strong in that class are not very good. And we know that math is a gatekeeper for our kids, keeping them out of the higher level classes and out of college. The goal in Monrovia is that everybody is prepared for college and or career. The option is up to them, but we want them all prepared. So math is a very important area that we embrace, and we have been able to deliver in Camp Infinity in the summer. The tools that we used were the SWAN math assessments and the math inventory assessment, giving that the first and the last day of summer school like we did with the reading. Next slide, please. So the daily instructional components were conceptual lessons, digital math fact fluency practice, and spiral review warm-up. We find that the students that come into the program, many of them do not have their multiplication tables memorized yet. And while we know that memorizing math doesn't lead you to be able to apply it very well, we know that memorizing those math facts are really important in quick application. So they practice every single day, and tremendous success has been had in helping these students to focus on that memorization and to get it done in this 4-week period. Next slide, please. Here are the results from our Camp Infinity. And again, we can see that our pre and post test, those students that were far below basic, we were able to bounce 14% of those kids out of that bottom band. And you can see all of the bands did move up. Next slide, please. Our average growth was 60 quantiles, which equated to over 6 months growth in just 1 month of applied mathematical teaching. Next slide. And here's what we saw from the math inventory. Again, I really like to focus on those students that come to us that are below. We went from 23 to just 11% in that lowest band. And you can see all of those colors move down. We want to see them moving down. Next slide. So then we have the middle school bridge program. These are our English language learners that are in ELD, and they are incoming 6th to 8th grade. We really want these kids to redesignate and to get the English language proficiencies needed for them to be able to venture into other electives other than ELD in middle school and high school. Next slide, please. So the lesson components in the bridge program, we used vocabulary warm-ups through computer programs such as Kahoot and Quizzes, weekly writing with Edpuzzle, which is another one of our computer applications, weekly speaking activities on Flipgrid, which is another application on the computer. And then they had novel studies with mini lessons where they were reading the same novels that were given to the Camp Read a Lot students. So Monrovia Reads also supplied books for our bridge program. Next slide, please. Their growth was almost 1 year in just a month. And these are students that are, pretty timid about their learning in a language that's not their native language and not being proficient yet. So this is what their growth was. We're very proud of them. Next slide, please. And here we could see their growth. Next slide. So then we had, we were going to venture into high school, early college counseling. We had a course. We had 160, it was 160. We didn't have 160 students. That's the name of the course. These are students that are rising 9th grade students. We also had Citrus College Credit Recovery and Original Credit courses that were staffed by our Citrus College partners. We had chemistry honors, and then we had another chemistry class that was provided by the Schools Foundation. And then new this summer, that was a vision by the board, we had summer enrichment boosters. And we didn't really know how that was going to turn out when we were creating it. There was a lot of discussion about what it should look like and how could we do this, and will anybody sign up for it? And I'm proud to announce and to report to you that it was a very big success, and we intend to do this again. Next slide. So our early counseling course, our instructor was Kimberly Hurst, and she served 28 students. Our passage rate in a college course for our students was 93%, and free college units earned was 78 units when you multiply that out. So that's pretty cool. Okay, next slide, please. Our Citrus College Credit Recovery and Original Credit classes and chemistry honors. We, in semester 1, we served 222 students. In semester 2, we served 149 students. And this happened this summer. And these were the credits earned: 1,110 in semester 1 and 745 credits earned in semester 2. So we had students that came, stuck it out, persevered during the summer months online, and they earned their credits for chemistry. Next course, please. Oh, and it wasn't just chemistry. It was biology, chemistry, English, math, and world history.
Can I ask you a question, Dr. Kaiser? This Citrus College Credit Recovery, are these MUSD students who are in the both path, the college path also, or are these Citrus College students that came to our campus? What exactly is this?
I will tell you. These are MUSD students, and there are two types of students in MUSD. The course is offered by Citrus College instructors, and it's paid for by Citrus. These are high school courses only. These are not dual enrollment classes.
Okay.
They're MUSD classes, and these are going toward high school graduation only. And so in the class, there could be students that failed a class during the school year and they're taking it to recover the credit, or they could be students that are taking the course sitting side by side that are getting ahead. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, the Monrovia Schools Foundation, they sponsor a chemistry class, and they had a teacher from the high school, Mr. Fan. We had 21 students, and 100% of those students passed chemistry, a full year of chemistry in the summer course, which is an amazing thing. These students had to study really hard, 4 hours a day of class, and then they had at least 4 hours of homework every day. Very challenging. And chemistry is a difficult class, right? Next slide, please. So our summer enrichment boosters, this was our new program that we had never had before. We had 8 booster subjects offered: integrated math, biology, English, Spanish, and history. They were 2-week sessions that were standards-based, and they focused on projects for each of these courses. We had 175 students that enrolled and 116 completed. 49 of these students were 9th graders, and they earned a 1-letter grade boost in the subject area for the first semester. So what happened is, if they took this course and they passed it in the summer, a little 2-week booster course, when they take the same course in the fall, and if they get a B, their grade is automatically boosted by 1 grade letter, so they would receive an A for coming to this course. We had 67 existing Monrovia High School students. They earned a 1-letter grade boost for their spring 2020 or applied to fall 2019. So they were able to raise their grade from last year. And that was really beneficial because of the last semester in terms of the online learning and some of the challenges that they may have had. So this was a wonderful opportunity for them as well. And the most advantageous for the pass rate, and it was also to help them meet those A through G requirements. Next slide, please. Okay, any questions? That is our summer school report.
Any questions?
Sue, I had a really quick question on the enrichment boost. Is that when we get to boost a grade up by 1 full letter grade, is that approved or okay by the UC system that we're saying, yeah, we're going to take your B to an A?
Well, they have the coursework from the summer that they're rolling forward to show that they had this other work. It's like extra credit work that was done preemptively or in the post. So it's not just giving them a boost for not having anything accomplished. They had to have accomplished the work and had passing grades during the summer. They couldn't just attend and flunk the course. They had to attend and do the work and pass the course. It was standards based and it was assessed.
Yeah, well, I'm not questioning that aspect. I just want to make sure that that the UC systems and everybody else accepts this additional work that was put in and the reward of getting a higher grade.
Yes.
Perfect.
Any other questions? Sue, I have a comment, and I'm going to come right back on the summer enrichment. I thank you for putting this in. This has been something that I know the board has wanted for a long time. But what the board really wants is enrichment in summer school itself, where a student may not want to be in the early college program. Maybe what they really want is an extra elective. And so by going to summer school, they're able to accomplish and free up that time. I really like to concentrate going into next year, the opportunity of offering the full enrichment of offering summer school. It will set us apart from so many other schools in the area because truly nobody offers enrichment in summertime anymore. It was commonplace when we were all in school, but we all know that's in the age of the dinosaur. But the fact of the matter is it opened up us to having another elective in school. And where a lot of people found the value of going to school was in that elective. It wasn't so much in the English class, not that's not important, it absolutely is. But the value of going to school sometimes was in that elective. And so if we can offer as much as we can to our students, the ability to find something that gives them a reason to come to school and excel, then I think the cost of whatever it is in the summertime is returned to us in far greater rewards than whatever that we spend.
Mm-hmm. Noted.
Thank you.
Actually, just a quick question, Dr. Kaiser. The summer enrichment courses that were offered, typically, aren't they only offered for remediation? And didn't we expand the offerings this year so that they could be for advancement?
We did expand the offerings. Typically, they're limited. The seats are limited to those that have only failed courses. So those students that took, for instance, the English class or a biology class, that actually opens up elective spaces during the school year in their schedule. So if a sophomore takes biology in the summer before they get to school the following year, then it opens up an elective for them during the school year.
And I thoroughly understand how we do it. What I would like to see us do is that we offer enrichment to every student, not just one who maybe struggled during the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think I'm trying to clarify. I thought we did.
Mm-hmm. We did. These were opened up to students. Part of them were students that were doing credit recovery. Others were doing credit get ahead. The ones that were doing credit get ahead, they now have openings in their schedule for other electives during the school year. So it wasn't limited to just those failing students.
No, but okay, maybe and it's very easy that I cannot understand something. So let me just work on my understanding. Summer enrichment boosters, are we talking the same thing, or are we talking that we had summer enrichment programs? I mean, summer enrichment, summer school. Did we have both?
The booster program was linked to their academic classes. You're correct in that. In terms of opening up electives, it was those full courses. When a student took a full course of chemistry, that frees up that section in their schedule the following year, so they have room for other electives.
I thoroughly understand that. So yeah, my comment will stand. I want to be able to offer the as many as we can that allows students the ability to take not just a chemistry, not just a biology, but whatever the course may be, so that they can take a different elective their following year. And that's what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about opening up the whole menu. I understand you have to be selective and maybe offer breakfast for a while until we add lunch and dinner, but I would certainly like to get to the larger menu.
Mm-hmm. Noted.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? All right, then we'll move on to consent. Entertain a motion for consent.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. A second. Any question?
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
We know any discussion? No. Ms. Huff, maybe please have a vote.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board President Hammond?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
First item up on action items is Dr. Kaiser and the Deep Space Sparkle membership.
Tonight we have before you a motion. We're requesting that you approve a membership in Deep Space Sparkle for the 2021 school year. This is aligned to our LCAP goal number 13, and it provides a broad course of study in engaging students in a virtual elementary art program. These lessons are used by our art teacher who can teach through 5th grade art lessons in our virtual environment, and during the school year she teaches the art lessons throughout our district. Now she's teaching every single child in our whole district virtually. And this lesson bundle contains 144 lessons that she personalizes and delivers online to our students. The cost of this is $336 a year, and we have this in our LCAP and are planning to pay for it with our supplemental and concentration funds.
Any questions of Sue? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any discussion? Ms. Huff, can we have a vote?
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board President Hammond?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Kaiser and, well, number 2, Sue.
The Board of Education is requested to approve coaching and change management services agreement between the Educational Technology and Life Corporation, EdTech team, and the Monrovia Unified School District for the Dynamic Learning Project. We are so excited about this. In our district, we have our educational specialists. We have two that specialize in educational technology. And if any of you have ventured into the Monrovia Unified Distance Learning Platform, they have been the authors of that platform, and they've been the authors of much training of our teachers and office hours for our parents, newsletters for our parents in the way of distance learning. And their work has been just tireless throughout the summer. I don't think these two individuals have taken a day off all summer. Last year, our district was invited by Google to come down to the Google plant in Irvine to spend a day. And when they invited us, we weren't exactly sure what it was or what they were trying to sell, if it was a computer application or whatever. And it wasn't that at all. They were venturing into an educational embarkment in terms of improving education and improving digital education. And so we took them down and we worked with Google for a day. And the residual from that was that they selected a few individuals from that room to continue to work with the Google team throughout the rest of the year. And our two individuals, Chad Miller and Jen Malgin, were selected to be part of this Google team. And then in the summer, our cabinet and the Google team from our district met with the Google specialist, and we went through a day of problem solving that was pretty amazing. So the result of that is statewide, they have selected a few people to enter into a coaching relationship. And this is a coaching and change management service agreement between our district and this group, which is the Google group. And our two educational technology specialists would be the ones that would be receiving the coaching from them. And this would be for the entire year. The cost of this agreement is $4,522, and it will be paid from the learning loss mitigation funds.
Any questions of Sue?
I have a question. Dr. Kaiser, you said the coaching is for the entire year. Does it take them out of the classroom for the year? They're already
out of the
classroom. Got it.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Huff, may we please have a vote?
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Celine?
I'm muted. Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Up next is Dr. Kaiser in LA County Office of Education contract.
Yes, this is the Board of Education is requested to approve a contract with the Los Angeles County Office of Education for nurse assistant training, Greater Avenues for Independence, otherwise known as GAIN, G-A-I-N. The contract will enable the Monrovia Community Adult School to use its expertise to provide quality short-term training in its nurse assistant pre-certification CNA program to the Los Angeles County Office of Education GAIN clients. The contract provides a maximum of $19,200 to the Monrovia Community Adult School to train GAIN program students and guarantees that the adult school will be paid for up to 12 GAIN participants in its nurse assistant pre-certification CNA program. So in this agreement, instead of us paying for services, this agreement is about our district receiving payment for supplying services in this GAIN program with the county.
Any questions of Sue? Sue, I do have one question. What is the anticipated revenue coming in from this?
It's up in terms of the tuition awards, it's $19,200 in tuition awards for our students, and that goes directly into our adult school. And this is the beginning of this agreement. This will be something that's ongoing and that will grow.
Thank you.
One comment, President Hammond. This is just another benefit of having an adult school that has some top-notch career technical programs and programs to offer. And that's been recognized, and these county program will put people in our program because our staff is doing such a great job over there in the adult school. So thanks to them.
Right, and anything that we can do to help people find jobs is a good thing. Entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
I'll second it, Maritza.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Ms. Huff, may we please have a vote?
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And the last in the Sioux Show, an iStation quote.
That was in consent. Sorry, I have it right here. I think this one was in consent.
Well,
No, it was not.
No,
This
I
is the
see
first
it.
time.
I see it as an action item.
Okay, all right. I'm happy to talk about the iStation. The Board of Education is requested to approve a quote and terms of use with the iStation for use with the Spanish dual immersion program at Monroe and Wild Rose School of the Creative Arts. What the iStation is and does is it's a suite of products in Spanish that parallels the suite of products that we have in English. So our students who are learning Spanish will be able to take a diagnostic test so their teachers can see where their gaps are in the Spanish language, just like our teachers are able to administer a diagnostic in English for our English-speaking students to see where their gaps are. So iStation does that. And then once the gaps are identified, the iStation also has lessons that are computer generated that are matched up with where the gaps are in an individual student's program. So the iStation is a very valuable tool for our dual immersion students, especially those that are learning the language.
Any questions of Sue?
I have a question. So will this sync with the curricula, i.e. the standards?
It does with the standards, and our curriculum that we currently have is standards aligned. So it's working off of the same standards. And what this really is, the iStation is very much skill based. So it's assessing the skill levels, and it helps to patch in those phonetic areas where students are missing certain pieces, or the grammatical areas where students are missing grammatical areas that will transpose right into the regular program. It's much like the iReady program that we have on the English side of the house that works alongside of the Houghton Mifflin.
Okay, so when it identifies the gaps, I want to be clear, it helps to fill the gaps. It doesn't require the teachers to find other materials in which to fill the gaps. It fills the gaps.
It'll identify the gap and then supply the lesson for the teacher to assign to the student. That is the gap filler. So for instance, if you take a kindergartner that's learning English and they are missing the letter and sound of a. They don't have that. They would take the test, the diagnostic would point that out, and then there would be a little series of lessons that would reinforce the proper use of that phonetic pattern. Of course, I gave you something that's very simplistic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
This goes on. And, you know, we have these tools for our students that are in our regular program, and the dual teachers, anything that we can give them that has a similar sophistication is very much welcome and wanted by the teachers.
Now, where does this go in terms of time during the day, week, month, year? How long does this take? And how much does this take away from the syllabus?
It actually doesn't take much. The diagnostic is something that they can do independently. The students, it's a computer-generated assessment. And then after the assessment is given, the teacher would do some instructing in the class period to get the students used to the system. Once the students are used to the system, this is assigned in their independent time. And the way the schedule is designed, the teachers are teaching in the morning block and then one short afternoon block, and then the students have an afternoon independent block. These lessons would be assigned in that afternoon independent block. And they're not long. They're skill-based. They're not very long. And we all know that the way that you learn skills is the repetitions and the frequency. It's not spending hours doing it. It's spending some time each day doing the activity.
Is this something that, because you've already placed it in the distance learning schedule, is this something that can only be used with distance learning? Or when we eventually physically go back into the classroom, can it be used there as well?
It can be used either. It very much parallels the iReady program, and some of our schools have taken the iReady, aside from the intervention that we purchased it for, they're using it school-wide with all of their students, including their GATE students. The amount of time that the students spend in the iReady environment is only 45 minutes a week. So it's a few minutes each day. This iStation would be very similar to that. And it's something that they can do either at home or they could do it at school. The iStation program monitors how much time the student is spending so the teacher can track the time and the progress. And the teacher can also see if a student gets stuck in one skill where the teacher needs to intervene in that one skill and give something other than iStation to enforce that one skill so that they can get on past whatever roadblock they might be having.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Huff, will you please have a vote?
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board President Hammond?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Rob, could I have a 5-minute break to get a charging cord for my iPad?
You absolutely may. 9:03, we'll be back at 9:08.
Thanks.
You bet. Okay, we're back. And up next, we're taking staff report by Dr. Darvin Jackson, a student fieldwork placement agreement.
Thank you, Board President Hammond, members of the board, Dr. Tarosian, cabinet, and members of the community. The Board of Education is requested to approve a fieldwork placement agreement between Loma Linda University and the Monrovia Unified School District for a term beginning August 28, 2020 through September 30th, 2025. This is yet another partnership with a local university providing opportunities for speech language pathologists or future speech language pathologists that will be involved in planning between the university faculty and our designated staff here in the district for the assignment of students to specific cases and experiences, included selected conferences, work experience, and courses and programs, allowing for rich experiences in preparation for certification as a speech language pathologist, and ultimately the district assisting individuals in gaining employment. There is no budget impact to the district.
Any questions, Darvin? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And any discussion? Ms. Huff, may we please have a vote?
Board Member Travanti,
Yes.
Board Member Wong,
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland,
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie,
Yes.
Board President Hammond.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Up next is Dr. Tarosian and a board policy for working remotely.
Thank you, Board President Hammond, members of the board. This is a policy that is returning to us, and with some changes, Dr. Jackson would best be able to clarify some of those changes and bring it back for additional discussion. Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. Tarosian. Yes, this board policy working remotely was previously presented to the board for a first reading. There were some additional suggestions made and have therefore been included, specifically language referencing the expected work location is the employee's temporary work at home location. If an employee intends to use a location other than their designated work at home location, employee must seek approval in advance. So that was additional language. And then finally, employees' participation in the work at home program must not adversely affect the workload or performance of other employees. Work at home must not put a burden on staff remaining in the traditional office/classroom site. All other language that was previously presented remains the same.
Any questions of Darvin? Celine?
It sounds silly, but I do just want to clarify it because I understand that the title of this is working remotely. But when it says the expected work location is the employee's temporary work at home location, if an employee intends to use a location other than their designated work at home location, what if they choose to work at school? What if they choose to work on our site?
They have the option of working on site.
But so that doesn't, it says they need, if they do that, they must seek approval in advance. Do they need to seek approval in advance, or can they just show up to the site? If
they're going to work on campus, they don't need to seek approval because that's been given that's always been an option.
Right.
This is specifically saying if you're working remotely. If you're working on campus, then you're not working remotely.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because, I mean, you're sort of working remotely because you're on the computer, but you're physically no longer remote.
Correct.
So that's a separation. Correct. Yeah. All right.
And there will be some language in the administrative regulation that basically directs employees of how we're going to implement it, the how-to, that indicates if you come to campus, then you must check in at the office or through possibly our Parent Square system, because we have the ability to do that now.
Darvin, and the reason why that's so important is, God forbid, there should be a natural disaster or other catastrophe. The first question we're going to be asked by Monrovia PD or the fire department is, who's on campus? Where are they located? And that's why that is such a critical component of the AR. So I'm glad you're addressing that.
Yes, we actually have been working on that, just as we have people coming to campus currently, site administrators, district administrators wanting to know who's on campus, custodians wanting to know who's on campus, so that we can ensure that either high traffic areas are being sanitized and or the classrooms are being sanitized after the individuals are leaving.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question. Because this is the second read, but there were some amendments. I'm allowed to ask a question here, right?
That's what it's for.
Since this is the second read, but there were amendments, does there need to be another read?
Are you asking me or asking Dr. Terosian?
Whoever knows the answer to that.
The answer, this is the second reading. It just, there was an amendment to the language.
Okay, so does there need to be another one, or is this it?
This is it.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Huff, may we please have a vote?
Board Member Wong?
Yes.
Board Member Gilliland?
Yes.
Board Member Lockerbie?
Yes.
Board Member Travanti?
Yes.
Board President Hammond?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Dr. Terosian, pending board issues.
Thank you, President Hammond, members of the board. Just in reviewing the pending board policies and issues, I wanted to bring to your attention the learning continuity and attendance plan that is going to be coming up for a public hearing on September 9th during the board meeting, and will be returning on September 23rd for approval. Dr. Kaiser had provided an overview of the plan and the general ideas. Every district and site team is working on fleshing out the ideas and the topics. And if you recall, we needed to go through a process of presenting it to different constituent groups, including our district advisory committee and our district English learner advisory committee. So we'll be going through that prior to bringing it back to you on September 9th.
Okay.
I have one question.
Ed.
Yes, have we started to think or talk about when the next state of schools might be?
On October 7th.
7th? I didn't have that date. Okay, thanks. That will, for now, we're planning a virtual meeting?
We are planning a virtual one, yes.
Oh, now I see it on the calendar.
I just got it there. You didn't miss it.
Okay, thanks. That was easy.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a question. As I'm looking down on these pending board issues, I'm looking at the facilities needs assessment. Did we ever establish the committee that we were going to establish for the that was going to the facilities committee from the community?
Yes. This is probably a good time for me to provide an update on both of those. We have two community committees, one for the Facilities Master Plan or Master Needs Committee. We contacted them, I think in June. Time no longer has any meaning, and told them that we would be postponing the work that we had planned until we got the school year in place. Back then, when the letters went out, we really thought we would be in a hybrid model now and would be able to get started. Things have been pushed back just a little bit further because for us to embark upon that right now may tax our resources just a little further than we can. And so
I think it definitely would, but I think it's important that we mention it.
And I think it might be a good time for us, because it's probably been a couple months since we've contacted them, to let them know that we really are still relying upon them and that we would like to get started just as soon as it's feasible to do so. In terms of the Policy Review Committee, a letter will, we've contacted some of those outside organizations as well that had been mentioned here to ask for representatives. As soon as we get all the representatives, we'll send a letter out, likely next week, thanking those who have expressed their willingness and just providing them with next steps so that that Policy Review Committee can begin their work.
Thank you. Good question, Celine. Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Tarosian. We will be having a special meeting on September the 3rd at 7 p.m. Like I said earlier in the meeting, we will be having special meetings until it's no longer necessary, trying to keep the community informed as to everything that's going on, getting it to you as quickly as possible. So we'll be here on September the 3rd at 7 p.m. We'll also be, is it the 3rd or the 2nd? Thursday, right? Thursday the 3rd.
I think it's the 3rd, yeah.
Yes. Then it'll be Wednesday, September the 9th will be a regular school board meeting, followed on September the 23rd by another school board meeting. Not to forget, there are back to school nights. Santa Fe is tomorrow at all virtual, of course, followed by Braddock's on September the 1st, MHS on September the 2nd, Mayflower on September the 3rd, Monroe on September the 8th, Clifton on September 10, and CELC on September the 11th. Also to remember, Labor Day, all school sites will be closed on Monday, September the 7th. And the state of the schools, as Ed mentioned, is now freshly printed as October the 7th, 2020. And if there is no further business before this body, we will stand adjourned. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.